Hello, welcome back to another pattern design tutorial. In my previous video, I showed you the mechanics of pattern tiles and how they are created to form a seamless repeat. So if this looks familiar to you, then that was a previous video. If you're not sure what I'm talking about when it comes to pattern tiles or how they actually repeat, it would be a really good idea to just recap on that video because it's such essential foundational information when it comes to seamless repeating pattern designs. But anyway, what I'm going to do in this tutorial is we're going to, instead of using boring shapes, we're going to start illustrating with some beautiful motifs, some hand-drawn motifs. I'm using Procreate for this. You can also use Adobe Fresco, and you can also do similar things with Illustrator, Photoshop, Canva, so even Affinity Designer. So the process is the same, even though the buttons and how we get there might be a little bit different. Essentially, the information is the same. So if you're more comfortable, say, using Adobe Fresco, go ahead and do that. But just know I'm using Procreate, so if you want to follow along with me and do exactly what I do, because that's how we learn, right? We learn by imitating. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to clear this layer so I can start afresh. I'm going to give myself a pretty background color this time, because if you remember in the previous video, I had to add an invisible layer anyway. But this way, I'm going to just add a color layer. And if you decide to do the same, have your invisible layer on one layer, but then put your artwork on another layer, please. You might find that sometimes you'll forget to do this step and then you'll come back and you're like, oh, I forgot to do it. But anyway, so create a new layer and let's start drawing. Okay, I'm going to do an imperfect leaf shape. We're just going to start by just doing some artwork. Please don't worry about whether it's perfect. We're just learning and having fun. And what you want to do is just make sure that your artwork does not go over the edge of any of your patterns, because as we went through in the previous video, the edges need to seamlessly appear on the other side. So if you have, you know, something that goes off to the edge, it's not going to appear on the other side. You're just going to have a jilted piece of artwork there. So keep it to the center. Make sure you don't go over the edge. Okay, I'm going to do some more, just some more leaves. Just like that. And that one's not going to fill. Okay. Again, please don't worry about it being perfect. This is not school for perfection. Okay, I'm just going to leave it at that. And now what we want to do is, now we're going to split it up like we did in the last video. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to group these together because I don't want my layers together just yet. Okay, so I've got a group here. I'm going to duplicate them. We duplicate them 3 times so that we've got 4 identical copies. We're going to move the corners so that they are now in the center. And again, make sure you're watching for your, see those yellow snapping lines? They are making sure that I'm in the center, that everything is lined up. Very important. If you can't see those, just check that your snapping tool here is activated, because otherwise even 1 pixel out is going to ruin your seamless repeat. So, okay, here we're starting to bring the center into the corner, and you'll start being able to see, oh, I'm shaky today. You'll start being able to see a void in the middle that used to be outside. Okay, so we can see that our leaf that was previously in the middle is now broken up and split into 4 quadrants and chucked in the corner. That's cool, because now we can start adding our artwork in the middle here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to add a new layer to do another leaf. And I'm actually going to flip it upside down so that it's a non-directional non-directional leaf. And I've got this beautiful spot right here. So I'm going to turn that into another leaf. And just like any new skill that you're learning, you won't always get it right. And that's okay, because, you know, we're supposed to just enjoy this and not worry about whether it's perfect. And as I say to my kids all the time, what happens when you practice? And then they say to me, you get better. Because we're not after perfection, we're after getting better and having fun. Okay, now I'm going to colour in all of my leaves. And do you think we need some more leaves? So the idea with a seamless repeating pattern is we want it to hide obvious seams, which includes like repeating voids. Obviously everything's going to repeat, but we don't want it to repeat so obviously that you can see, unless that's the look that you're going for. Typically, especially in, you know, florals like this, we don't want to see the seams. Okay, but I've filled a lot of the gaps, again being careful not to go near the edge, because that is going to affect my repeating tile. Okay, so I'm happy with that now. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to join all of my groups together, because I want to now check the tile. Okay, so I'm going to squeeze all of them together onto one layer, and then I'm going to duplicate it 3 times so that I have 4 identical pattern tiles. Now let's resize it, and I'm doing this just to test. This is not the final. We do this to test. There's a lot of this when you get used to doing this in pattern illustration, because it happens a lot when you're testing tiles, when you're checking for errors or obvious seams. But basically what I've done here is now I've got my 4, and you can see, I'll just move this over. We've got the 4 individual pattern tiles lined up side by side to create this seamless repeat. Oh, and as you can see, I'm so glad this happened actually, because this right here will cause you to tear your hair out as a pattern designer. So please, just accept this will happen. This is called a hairline. And what it is it's where I haven't snapped the tile back correctly. You can see an obvious line breaking the edge of the tile, and along here as well. I'll zoom right in so you can see it. Can you see how you can see the pixels here of where the tile is slightly moved over? And hey, that's cool. I'm going to go on a more in-depth tutorial on white lines and how to fix it. But in this instance, I know exactly what's happened. I'm going to just step backwards a few steps. I'm just double tapping the screen to do a quick undo, because I know what's happened is when I have resized each one, I haven't snapped it properly. And as I've said before, even 1 pixel can harm the repeat. So I'm just going to redo this process again, just making sure that I'm snapping to the guides. Okay. And even sometimes when in Procreate, also happens in Adobe Fresco, sometimes you can snap it as you're letting your pen go. Sometimes it can just move slightly. Oh, so frustrating, but we just have to move on. Okay, so I've made sure that we've got the snap there. So let's check it again. Okay, I can't see that hideous white line anymore. I cannot see the seam, even though we know it's there. Okay, so good. So that is why it is super important to check your patterns as you go, because I would hate for you to do like another half an hour's work only to realize that there's been an error, and you're like, ugh, so frustrating. But basically, once we've checked our pattern tile here, we can have a look at it and go, all right, what can I see that I'm not happy with? So I can see small gaps here that are slightly inconsistent with my overall pattern. So I can actually just go back to my original pattern tile. So what I'll do is I'll delete those 3 because we just want to work with the original. Okay, and then let's just go ahead and pop in some small leaves there just to fill in those gaps, because I love a beautiful consistent pattern where you can't see the obvious seams. So let's go ahead and we'll check again. Okay, so let's go ahead and we'll just check our pattern seams again to see if the changes we made, were effective. Ensuring our snapping this is where we do have to be perfect. Okay, all right, beautiful. I'm happy with that. So I can't see any obvious like overly large gaps. Nothing is overlapping, and I can't see any of the seams. So I am super happy with that pattern. I hope you are happy with this process as well. I hope you enjoyed creating your pattern tile. Now, there's a couple of options for export here, exporting your pattern tile. Because I've got 4 tiles in a row, if you want like a medium scale pattern, you can export it as is. Or we can go back to when we just had our single initial original tile, and you can export that as a large scale pattern. But I hope that you've enjoyed this tutorial where you have taken the basics of pattern design and you've incorporated your own hand-drawn elements in to create a beautiful, seamless, repeating pattern.